Well, hey friends, Shanna Kramer here with Creatively Uncorked, and today we are going to be painting All That Glitters. This is a beautiful new acrylic painting that we're going to be doing today. We have only 3 colors today. We're going to use black and white and gold. This is a fancy gold. It's my favorite. It's a golden brand, and I believe it's iridescent fine gold. I'll post a link in the video when I'm done recording. So yeah, I have my pink colors. I have my reference photo, which you have up in the corner. I have my 3 brushes. I have a larger flat brush, which is just going to make some tree trunks and some details. I have a large bristle brush. I'll call it large. It's kind of a medium brush. And then a small bristle brush. The bristle brushes have this wonderful texture, so I can just, stipple on some texture, which we're going to be using all over this painting. And I just realized I might need a 4th brush, which would be a small round, to get some of these details. And that's fine, I can grab that later. I also have a paper towel, and I have my cup of water, which is hidden behind your cheat sheet, your photo reference. And I have my most important brush, my big paper towel. So my canvas here, this is a smaller canvas. This is a 9 by 12. And I'm going to start with my paper towel. Dunk that in a little bit of water, because I'm actually going to be using this as my first brush. Squeezing that out. All right, so we've got this fun texture in the background here, and we could do that with a brush. It would take a little while, and try our patience, and we're going to need our patience later. So we're going to do the background the easy way, with a paper towel. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of white, a little bit of black, give it a mix of some gray, and then I'll start dapping that right onto the paper towel, or right onto my canvas. Maybe a little more water. Yeah, so I'm just getting a nice chunky background texture going on here. This will, we are going to be working with this, building up layers on top of this. So this isn't the final, but keep in mind that a lot of the texture that you're putting down right now, you will see when the painting's finished. So keep that in mind as you're making your painting, as you're making your background. Okay, got a nice texture there. I'll get a little bit more white for behind the trees. Don't go overboard. We want to keep our texture. Don't overblend it. And done. Okay, that's it. I don't want to keep going. I don't want to do too much on this, so I'm just going to stop right there, and I'm done with my paper towel as a brush, so I can just throw this away and move on. All right, very lovely. So we have a couple of mountains then that we'll want to be adding in our background, and that is something that we can use one of our smaller brushes for. So I have my small bristle brush right now, and I'm just going to take it, dunk it in a little bit of water. Just kind of always start out with dunking your brushes in water, unless you have a really good reason not to when you're painting with acrylic, because you just want to get your brushes prepared for paint. So I just have a little bit of paint on the end of my brush, and I'm just going to follow along with where my mountains are. So I've got kind of the mountains are starting about halfway down the canvas, and I've got a 2-peaked mountain here and there, which is a little more gray than black, I guess. So there and there. And this one rolls down to the left, down to the right. And if you want to take your time with this, go a little bit slower, feel free to pause the video, come back to it when you're ready. Okay, so they've got a left mountain and a right mountain. And I'm just going to make all the mountain tops, and then I'll come back in and fill in the texture. So I've got another smaller mountain right about down here. Not going too overboard with the texture or with the lines, just giving some hints of where these mountains are going to be. No details. Okay, and on the left side I have a taller mountain. All right. Looks like mountains. Right, there's a larger mountain that's going to be coming in, or a hill I should say, that'll be coming in down here. This is where our gold will be. So I'll get a little bit of a hill. There. So my lines are all in. I know where everything is going to go. And now we can start adding that texture. So I can still continue on with this small brush or switch to the larger one at any point. And I'm mixing a really dark gray just by taking both some black and then a little bit of white and kind of blending those together on the end of the brush. And then I'm just going to, I'll show you this technique. You could just sort of tap, tap, tap. Okay, so now we're kind of getting that fun little mountainy texture. And I think I'm actually going to switch to the larger bristle brush just to cover a little more ground a little more quickly here. Doing exactly the same thing, that kind of a gray color. And then kind of bouncing that. And kind of rotate the brush a little so you don't get the pattern overwhelmingly similar. Okay, I want it a little darker at the top of that mountain. And it should fade as it goes down, so I'm just tap, 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 tapping on that dark color. All right, nice little mountain in the background there. And if we want to add some more texture, a little more color variation, now I'm taking just white on that same brush. Just little tap, tap, taps of white. I want to keep my separation where the mountains are so you can tell one mountain from the next. Here there's some clouds going across the mountain. Lovely. Okay, just wiping that brush off on a paper towel. Moving on to the next mountain, which is also a dark gray. So I'm taking a little black, a little white, mushing it into the end of the brush. And this is my bristle brush. If you don't have a bristle brush and you can't get this texture, that's fine. Another thing that you could do is continue painting with another piece of paper towel. That gets you wonderful texture. Easy to do. A little less control over it, so it's nice for a big background, but it can be a little more challenging when you're working on small mountains, but that's okay. You can still do it. You'll just take a paintbrush and smooth out the edges, because that is the hardest thing to do with paper towel. Can't really get good edges. You can get good texture, but there are limits. And this will just take a little bit of time, so, you know, be patient. Otherwise you're going to end up with little circles all over it. We don't want circles, we want nice texture. Okay, so that's pretty good. I've got mountain texture around here. My second mountaintop is pretty light actually, so it's more of a medium gray. A little more white than that even, so it's kind of fading out to white. Only the very top of the mountain has a defined line. After that it kind of fades into a really lighter light. Make sure we get our light color blended in there. Not really that lighter, almost white, really light gray. Same deal, just tap, tap, tap. Okay. And then my last little mountain down here. This guy's a little bit darker than the rest, so I'm just gonna Have my really dark gray, mostly black, very little white, just whatever's left over in the brush. And there we are. Okay, so now we've got our hills in, we've got our little mountains in there, we've got our nice texture. So now we can start building up behind the trees, or building up the trees themselves. Okay, so I did go grab that smaller brush. This is my small round, and this one will get, it's a synthetic brush, it'll get some nice smooth lines where the bristles get nice choppy lines, good texture. Now we'll just take a look at this here. Zoom in a little. So what we're seeing here, we have some dark down here at the base of the tree. We have little trees coming up in here behind the gold, a larger tree coming up over here. And those are still part of the background, or let's say mid-ground actually, like the sky and the mountains are going to be more background. These trees are going to be more mid-ground, and then foreground will be the big tree and the gold flowers. Let's see, I'm going to take my black, mostly black, still on that bristle brush. And I'm just going to tap. Now this is my area behind the tree where it's dark. Just do some nice little taps in there, just kind of darken that area. And this dark at the base of the tree will help kind of anchor the tree, give it some gravity, make it look like it belongs there. If you get bored with the tapping, some circle scribbles might work really well. All right. Now I want to do some trees. So I'm going to take my bigger bristle brush, drop that in the water, and I'm switching back to my smaller bristle brush. I'm taking a little bit more black. Okay, so I've got some little like pine tree shapes down in here. Pine trees are basically just triangles, so as long as you get something triangle-y, it'll look, and it's put where a tree is supposed to go, then it's going to look a lot like a tree. Let's see, I'll go with a bigger tree right about here. And that'll be this guy. Yeah, so the tree doesn't go all the way to the ground. The trunk does, but not all these leaves. Leaves, needles, tree shapes. So I'm kind of making a choppy triangle here. There we go. All right. And now I'm going to leave that choppy triangle like that. And I'll come back when I'm done with the trees with my smaller brush, the small round brush, and I'll add in those trunks. So I'll go right next to it over here, a little shorter tree. Still kind of keeping that tap, keeping the texture, keeping the triangle shape. Don't go overboard. When in doubt, leave the detail out. You can come back later and add it if you want to. But if you start worrying about the detail too soon in the painting, well, that could turn into an obsession. Plus, it might be wrong, and then you'll have to fix it at the end of the painting. Oh, it's just, I like to just start the paintings out kind of loose and then tighten them up as it goes along. Kind of feels like it can have a more consistent look altogether if you just sort of follow that pattern. And we are using acrylic paint for this. And with acrylic paint, you mix water with it. You clean it up with water and soap. It dries very quickly, dries permanently. So we can build up layers on our canvas, and each layer will probably be dry before we move on to the next one. Good for your canvas, bad for your clothes. If it spills on your clothes, it will also dry quickly and permanently. So you'll want to get that rinsed out. If you spill on yourself, rinse it out before it dries. But you're probably wearing a paint shirt anyway, right? Okay, how's that? Nice little background trees. Okay, so I'm going to take my brush again and drop that back in the water. I'm leaving my brushes in the water when I'm not using them because I don't want the paint to dry on the brushes. Bad for brushes. All right, so now I'm just taking a little bit of water and mixing a little tiny bit of water in with a little bit of paint, black paint. Okay, on my littlest brush, and now I can just make some tree trunks here and there. Picking up a little more black. Now I think we can start adding in our larger trees. So we've got a, let's do our big tree. Let's do that big one. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so this guy is starting right about here. It's starting on the closest hill to you. And this one's going to be, so I'm just taking a look at where the tops of the tree is. It's got this big arc right up here. It's got another arc over here. It's going to be pretty big. It goes way over here. So that means the top of my tree will be somewhere in here. So I'm doing these branches. Normally I'll start at the bottom of the tree and work my way up with the branches, but this time I'm starting at the top because I know where I want it to end up. So in this case, I think it's a little bit easier to just start where I'm going to end. Okay. Get some nice wiggly branches in there. See this guy, I can go up this way. Adding a little bit of water as I go into that black paint. And then kind of goes crooked over here. Not sure what kind of tree this is, but maybe it's a cherry tree. They always have fun wiggly branches. And I've got another branch coming over this way. Mixing some water into my black paint to keep it flowing smoothly. Just go some wiggle branches. And you can put your branches kind of wherever you think they need to be. And you do not need to put all your branches in right now at all. We're going to be adding those leaves, and then we'll have a better idea of where the branches are going to go. So we're not even doing little branches at all, only the big branches. Okay, now I have my second tree right over here. I think I can put that trunk in. But again, saving some of the branches until later. Got a little bit of a thick trunk there. That's okay. Okay, stopping here, dropping my brush in the water, and then switching back to the larger bristle brush. Taking a little more black, a little bit of white in there. All right, so I'm going to start building my trees. Now I'm going with the leaves, and they're kind of upside down bowls. If you want to kind of draw them on first, I'm just going to tap a little. And I've got another top of one over here. So I'm doing another upside down bowl just with some taps. Just so I know what areas I need to fill in. Got some little groupings down here of some branches, of some leaves. This one here. Over on the right, I'm just taking a little bit of white, a little bit of black, same thing on that brush. Tap, tap. If you have too much paint on your brush, it's going to get kind of a weird looking tap. So just wiping some off, taking it back on. Okay. And then I just want to kind of know where this little tree is down here, that little tree on the side. Maybe I want this one to be a little darker, at least in some parts. You can see in this that all of these little areas are, some is lighter, some is darker, and it's that interesting variation that just makes this painting look interesting is what I think. So try and keep some of that variation in there when you're doing your leaves. We're only working with 2 colors on this, so use them both. Kind of just keep the flow going. There's a little bit lighter color. Okay, back into a little bit more black. We'll get these big tree leaves filled in. Just little tappy taps. If you pick up a slightly different shade of gray every time you put your brush to your palette, then you're going to keep that interesting variety of color going on. Let's get some gray in this one. A little bit of gray. Give it a little mush mush. And keep your edges interesting. Don't make it all the same. Keep it a little bit random. I'll go a little more light now with a little more gray. No, I don't want to fill this all in. I want to give those branches a chance to breathe. All right, so now I'm working on those top branches, the topmost branches. These I'll make mostly dark, and the reason for this is because we're putting that metallic gold paint over the top of it, and that metallic paint really stands out against a dark background. So I'll just make these leaves nice and dark. Picking up paint pretty often. You gotta keep the brush loaded with paint. Make this tree pretty big. There, how's that looking? Looking pretty good to me. So now I'm taking that big brush, dropping that back in the water. I want to add some tiny, tiny branches. So I'm switching back to my small round brush, the synthetic soft brush. And this is where we add a little bit of water into our black paint just to keep that flowing smoothly. So mix it up, thin it out a little. Because when you're wanting to do thin lines in your paint, you want to have thin paint, so add water to it. And then you want a light touch with the brush, so barely touch the brush to the canvas. So I'm rolling my brush in the paint, and that's going to get me as fine of a point as this brush is capable of. If you can see that. Okay, and then I'm coming back over here to the canvas and barely touch a canvas with some watery paint, and that's going to get you the thinnest lines you can get. Now in this case I am working on a tiny canvas. This is a 9 by 12 canvas, which is pretty small. So if you have a larger canvas, then of course these lines are going to look a lot smaller, a lot skinnier. So if you want a painting with fine lines, use a big canvas. Like my friend Ellen says, if you want to look prettier, don't stand next to the prom queen. If you want your lines thinner, put them on a big canvas. And just light touch. Little skinny little branches. And this is kind of the fun part. I think tree branches are super way too fun to make, and you can kind of easily tree to death, tree your painting to death, just because it's so much fun. So add as many as you want. I'll be adding a few because I have to let this black paint up here dry anyway before I can add the gold. I know I've got my big fat hand in the way here. Let's see if I can get a different angle. Okay, how's that looking? I don't know if I want to do too much more than that. I think I might leave it like this. Yeah, I think I like that overall shape and flow. So now I'm taking my little brush, dropping that one in the water, and switching to my smallest bristle brush. The ground down here is pretty dry, so that should be okay. I should be able to paint over that with gold. Now here's that gold. Okay. So this is a little tiny thing of gold. I just package these up like this because we're doing this one at a bar tomorrow night. So everybody gets their own individual little gold. And this is a professional artist paint, where the paint we usually use for these classes is a student grade paint, which is fine. But this artist grade paint is, wow, super powerful. Gorgeous, beautiful. Beautiful coverage. Fancy gold. This is my favorite gold as far as gold paint goes. I used this paint in every painting for, I don't know, about a year there. A few of those paintings still exist somewhere. A lot of them are gone by now. So just little tippy taps of gold. Gorgeous color. So with this, if you try to use a student grade paint, you can, a bit depending on the color. The student grade gold paints aren't super great. The copper's pretty good. Some of the silvers are pretty good. It's really hard to get a good looking gold paint unless you go super high quality. So that's what we did here. Just little taps. Doesn't seem like a lot of paint in here, but this is actually going to last a long time. A little goes a long way. Okay, looking pretty good for the gold in the ground. Could always add a little more. Don't want to go too overboard, though. I mean, I do, so I better stop. Do you want to go overboard on the sparkly, sparkly gold? All right, now into my trees. This is dry enough, starting up the tops of those trees. Just kind of tappity-tap. Just kind of rotating the brush as I go so it doesn't get too similar. The pattern isn't too similar. I can get a little bit more random. But you see what I mean about having the dark color behind the gold like this? It's sure it's gold, but it's not really that super outstanding. Where if you put the gold over this dark black, then it just really just pow, just stands right out. So sparkly. So go ahead and add whatever texture you want to your trees. I'm going to add just a little bit more here. So pretty. Just keeping the tree shape. The upside down bowl shape is kind of what I want to keep going on here. I'll just maybe put a little right down in here. Okay, that's enough. Well, I think I like it. Got that one. I'll add a little bit of gold. That dark black dot up there is kind of bugging me. Maybe I'll take a little white. There. Oh, now that's bugging me. Oh man, okay, here we go. All right, can I live with it? All right, I'm gonna take a little bit of gold, add a little bit of gold to that spot to draw your eye away from the little fix-up spot. So there we go. There, now all you can see is gold. All right. And there we have it. This is All That Glitters. Lovely new painting from Creatively Uncorked. And we're painting this one in town tomorrow night in West Fargo if you want to stop out and paint with us. Otherwise, you'll have this traceable available. If you're a member, you'll have this in one more try. members.creativelyuncorked.com. That's the website. And then you'll have the traceable, you'll have all the instructions. I'll include a link here so you can find this gold paint. Thank you for painting along with me, and I will see you next week.